Literally, I was born and I just basically popped out of the womb singing. Guys, I'm so excited. Okay, guys, welcome to my official artist channel. If you don't know anything about me, my name is Tenna and I am a singer-songwriter from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. Basically, I got started in the music industry a couple years ago. I started heavily pursuing music and I just wanted to sit down with you guys, get in my comfy clothes, take a seat and just chat with you guys about how I made my first EP, how I got started in the music industry, and tons of other things. Just to give you a bit of background about myself, I wanted to be a singer since I was literally 3 years old. It's all I've ever wanted. I really truly believe that I was put on this earth to pursue singing. Like, it's just my passion and it didn't develop over, you know, a couple of years or anything like that. Literally, I was born and I just basically popped out of the womb singing. And basically when I was in high school, my mom suggested that I go to an art school, but I was really young and immature and I honestly just wanted to stay where my friends were. I was also super nervous to sing in front of people. Leaving wasn't really my first priority. But basically when I was in university, I started singing covers and I started singing at open mics, at charity events. And that's how I kind of got started and loosened up a bit and decided, you know what, this is my dream, so who cares what other people think, you know? I'm just gonna do it because this is what I think I was meant to do. So basically, I'm just gonna go over a couple of things I think are super important, and if you're a singer, if you're an artist, and you wanna get started in the music industry, I think these tips will help you so much. So one of the huge things is actually connections. And I know a lot of people talk about that, but I don't think you guys understand how important connections are. And I don't mean connections like, oh, my dad's in the music industry, so there's a shoe-in and, you know, everything's all set for me. I mean, if you want connections and you want to weigh in, you have to go out there and you have to make those connections. You have to make your own opportunities. You can't just sit around waiting for them to come to you. It's super important that you go out there and no matter how you have to do it, do what you gotta do, okay? Because it's a dog-eat-dog world out there, guys. What happened to me is, obviously I have a part-time job because, you know, I'm just starting in the music industry, so I have to make money somehow. And basically a guy that I work alongside told me he knew this guy who could help me, and basically that he was involved in the music industry before and that he had worked with, I believe he said Pitbull and some other artists, and so he thought maybe this guy could help me as well. And basically this other man, so for the purpose of the story, let's call this other man John. John was supposedly really heavily connected in the music industry, had managed a really big actor who actually used to have a band. I'm not gonna mention any names. This man asked my family for a ton of money and basically said, you know what, I'm gonna help your daughter, and for a whole year I'm going to provide production services, photography, video services, and all that good stuff to kind of help your daughter get started in the industry. And obviously my family was very new to this. I was extremely naive. This was, I think, about like 4 years ago now. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, this guy's gonna make me famous. Like, that was obviously my first thought. And guys, I know like fame isn't everything, and I'm not, like, my goal isn't to be famous per se, but obviously I want to be a singer and I want people to hear my music. I just want to spread my music and spread my message, and I just love the way singing makes me feel. Like, if I could do it for the rest of my life, I know I would be super happy. But basically at the time I was like, this guy John, he's got it all figured out, he's so connected in the industry, he's gonna help me. My family and I were very skeptical, obviously, because he asked for a large sum of money, and I'm actually gonna tell you guys the sum of money because I'm not telling any names and there's no way anyone would even find out who I'm referring to. So he was asking us for $100,000 to make me basically get my career off the ground and make me start to have some fans and all that good stuff. And so basically this man, John, introduced me to my vocal coach, and she introduced me to a producer kind of behind this guy's back. John was saying we would work with in this year of all this money that we would invest in my career and yada yada yada. So I got on the phone with him and I was like, oh, this is a successful producer. Like, me being super naive, right? Like, this is my first rodeo at the end of the day. Like, I've never done this before. I'm like, oh my God, these people are well connected. Everything's gonna go so great. I end up working with this producer. So I met up with him and I met up with him with my dad, and you know, I really trust my dad. My dad's been heavily involved in my music career thus far, and we met with him and we just vibed, and I was like, okay, this guy seems to get us. Like, we seem to be on the same page. My dad and I thought, you know what, this is a good idea. Let's work with this guy. So I signed the contract, and when I say sign the contract, like, don't get it twisted. This isn't a recording contract. I'm not signed to a label. I'm independent. I signed a production contract to make a 4-song EP with this person. That's kind of how the snowball thing happened. Like, you know, it started from this guy at my work, this other guy, my vocal coach, producer. And so John in the story, the guy from my work kind of told me about, who was gonna, you know, help my career, and we were gonna pay him all this money. Obviously my family decided not to pay him this money because, I mean, come on, there was no guarantees. We had no clue what this man was about. It was obviously sketchy. We kind of cut ties with this person and moved forward. I had written bits and pieces of songs, but never really full songs. People would always be like, you need to write your own songs. And I was always like, I'm not a writer, like, I don't write, I'm just a singer. And then I was kind of forced to start writing because, you know, I was gonna make my first EP, and like, what was I gonna do? Like, I had to start writing. My dad and I, we just sat down and we just wrote these songs, and honestly, I never in a million years thought I could write like that. And not to like boost myself or anything, but like, I really surprised myself, and I was just proud of myself. I was like, wow, I had no idea I could write like this. I would write like some lyrics, and then usually I would have a chord kind of progression, and then I would bring it to my dad, and he would just like change the chords and make it sound so beautiful. And I would just kind of write off those chords, and we would just keep it going. And eventually we had 5 songs, and it was like, it just felt so natural. It came so easy to me, and it was just crazy. Then I went into the studio with them, and they kind of, and everything I'm gonna say about the production process, take with a grain of salt, because these people had probably the best intention. What we did is we kind of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, my producers, I should say, kind of simplified my songs and simplified the chords back to like what I had kind of had the chords as. And then, like I said, my dad had kind of made them so beautiful, and to me they just sounded so unique and whatever. Like, when I wrote my songs, guys, I never for 1 second thought, oh, could this be a hit? Oh, could this be successful? Not for 1 second. I literally just wrote from the deepest depths of my heart and soul. Never for 1 second was I like, oh, like, what could people like? Really and truly, that's not what my intention was at all. I had just started writing, and I just wanted to be honest and genuine and just write good music. My producers simplified the songs, and I recorded all the vocals. Like, you guys aren't gonna believe this, you guys are gonna think it's so weird. I recorded all the vocals without the instrumental having been made. So what my producers did is they actually produced the instrumental around my voice. Like, isn't that a crazy method? Like, listen, to each their own, everyone has their own method, but it's like, in my head now, in retrospect, I'm like, how could you possibly record the vocals without knowing the music? Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine? It's like imagine, like, let's take a song for example, like Camila Cabello's Havana. Can you imagine recording those vocals? Like, Havana, na na. Okay, that's like, you know the music. But can you imagine you didn't know the music was like this trap beat, and then you're like, Havana, na na. Like, it changes the mood, the rhythm, everything, right? Right away, I should have known that didn't make sense. Because it just doesn't. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I think, you know, everything has to be on the same page. You need to know the music that's going along with what you're saying. I just sang my songs the way I intended them to be sung, the way I wrote them, with the emotion and the meaning behind them. That's kind of how I sang them. So, you know, when I hear this upbeat music with it, like, sure, it's cool, but it doesn't allow the music to sound cohesive. The vocal doesn't necessarily match the background. So that's a massive thing I learned in this process. Just kind of, you need to know what you want going into it. And of course, I was naive. I was new to the industry. You know what? I'm sure tons of people would make the same mistake, because you're gonna listen to people who say they know more and say their experience. And, you know, at the end of the day, another thing I've learned, and this isn't talking about anyone in particular, it's just an observation I've made. Everyone is kind of faking it till they make it. Producer Joe, producer John, singer A, singer B, like, that's what people do. They fake it till they make it. It's just kind of the reality of the business. So when people are talking themselves up, like they've got it all figured out, just kind of take that with a grain of salt, because chances are, if someone's doing that, they are not that successful, and they don't really know what they're doing. I just feel like people who know what they're doing tend not to do that as much, to boast, to kind of claim they know everything about the industry. Also, guys, my Instagram is at Tenna's Music, Tenna's with an S at the end, music, and my other socials are Tenna Official, so you can find me anywhere with that. Why? Anyway, so now that you guys kind of know the recording process and kind of what I did to make my EP and how I got there, the connections I made, I just wanted to talk to you guys a bit about what I learned during the process.